Good morning. This is Gina from Embracing Imperfect. I hope you're seeing this because I'm having some problems on my Facebook page. I changed it to a business tool, and for some reason it has blocked me from admin access. So I'm going to take a quick look on my page and see if this is running, God willing. So because if it's not, we're going to have to be, I'm going to have to be reschedule this, and I really don't want to. Okay, it says that I'm live. There I am. All right, good. Sorry about that. You know, things on Facebook have been breaking the last 24 hours for like a lot of people, and I'm hoping it's just that it's breaking. So I picked the worst time to actually start a new tool with Facebook, but I want to welcome you here today. Thank you for coming and stopping by to my Facebook Live event. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's really just a bunch of years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, when we started eating healthy and detoxing our children and finding out they had food sensitivities and allergies. I was also simultaneously writing for momovation.com. I started writing for them just about 2012 was when we started discussing me working for them, and I was working on helping them get the word out about their anti-GMO labeling law, Prop 37, which is kind of a moot point ever since the Dark Act. But that was the time I found out about the difference between non-organic and organic foods. And so I made a switch with our family to get us all eating organic and non-GMO foods as much as possible. But over the years, I have learned that there are some foods which, you know, it's not bad. It easily fits in your budget. It takes just a little bit of adjustment to get it in your budget. And there are some foods that are they're just a pain. They're too expensive. They're too problematic. And at the end of the day, I don't even want to buy them anymore. So I'm going to go through the list of what I find is a winner and a loser. I'm going to start with my 5 losers. And you please feel free to jump in and ask questions about organic foods. Like I said, we've been buying them for about 5 years or so. And mostly we stick to USDA organic. We also try, if not Project Non-GMO verified, fruits and vegetables that are thick-skinned that we know are not GMO. And we try to avoid anything else. So these are, I'm going to start with the losers. As mentioned, these are the foods that are just like not that great when it comes to working with them. So the number one food I'm going to say is, I'm going to combine this. It's nuts and it's seed butter. Now, my problem with nuts are, I was talking to a friend, if you saw my smoothie bowl video, I was talking to a friend about making the video, and I was fortunate that right at the time that I was experimenting with the recipes in that book, I went to Whole Foods and their bulk nuts were on sale for $6.99 a pound. And I realized the last time I went to buy them and they were on sale that I must have bought in the they were cashews. I must have bought in the non-organic ones. And nuts are, they're expensive. They can be hard to work with. I had a lot of problem getting it really processed properly in the blender. And I have a Blendtec, so it is a high power blender. And they cost so much money. I mean, I just bought a little tiny bag because I knew I wasn't going to make lots of it. And it was only $3, but it was like, I don't know, a quarter of a pound. So they're a ton of money. They're normally like $11.99 for the organic, or the ones they call ones fancy. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, nuts you're going to have a lot of trouble with. And the substitution, and then of course you have all the people who have nut allergies and peanut allergies, and then the other thing is seed butters. So I went to switch my kids to seed butters from peanut butter, and at first they were open to it and they were eating the sunflower butter, and I was buying the organic brand. Once again, in Maranatha have organic for like $4 and change. right? So if you're not used to buying organic, that's a big change from $2 peanut butter, right? But nut butters are typically $5.99, $6.99, $7.99 for just the same size jar. If they're organic, they're going to be more around the, or non-GMO, they're going to be more around the $7.99, $8.99 range. So they're a lot of money. And I'm going to tell you, frankly, I don't like sunflower butter at all. Another problem with the nut butters and the nuts as well is they have a high phenol content. So if your kid has a sensitivity and rashes and you've tried a number of things taking them out of the diet, the problem might be phenols and siliciates and nuts and seed butter. I thought sunflower seed butter didn't have phenols in it, but a lot of the spreads have them. So that's another problem. Again, the poor taste. So about a couple of months ago, my kids decided they didn't want to eat the cheap sunflower butter anymore. They only wanted sun butter. And they didn't like the organic one, which is cost prohibitive anyway. But so I'm done with nuts. I will buy them on rare occasion or if they're on sale, but nuts and seed butters, they're just a big pain in the neck. And I also learned that the nuts might have copper toxicity, and they might have too much copper. And copper is in our bodies and something that we can use, but we can't have too much of it without too much zinc. So you want to have those things in balance. And probably not the greatest thing because a lot of people are so allergic. This is where I found out about the copper toxicity. You can see that link I just put up. So nuts and seed and sun butters are a loser for us in this house. And I don't buy them very often at all. Okay. The next loser is olive oil. Now, before we start a big thing, I do cook with olive oil. I do use olive oil. Don't use it as much as I used to, but I'm almost a significant solo coconut oil as much as possible. I do use olive oil is also great for seasoning my cast iron. Now the problem with olive oil is that it's easily corrupted. They had this show on 60 Minutes. I think I saw it a year ago. I actually wrote about the corruption in olive oil 2 years ago, but they actually had the show on 60 Minutes, and it was called Agro Mafia. So in Italy, which is home of all my ancestors, they have, of course, most of the olive oil comes from Italy. They farm it heavily. But unfortunately, the mafia nowadays or the organized crime has gotten involved in olive oil. They've also gotten involved in other things like wines and cheeses. But the olive oil is easy for them. What they do is they cut it. They cut it so to save money, to make a big profit. And so when you get the olive oil and it says it's GMO free, it might not be, because it might be cut under the table with other kinds of oil. So just to make a little bit of an extra buck for those guys. So you have to be careful with the brands. There are some safe brands. We use Kirkman, and I'm going to look at the brands here. Whole Foods, 365, California Olive Ranch is supposed to be a good brand, but I recently heard something about them. They might not be GMO free anymore. McGonvoy Ranch, Trader Joe's California Estate, Corto Olive Oil. I'll put the link in here. This is the link to the article I wrote about this. Now, if you do buy olive oil, you want to make sure you want to stick to extra virgin or virgin. Avoid the pure and the light virgin. Pure olive oil mixes. They put in the refined olive oil, and the refined is more processed. And then also light olive oil is also mixed and more processed. So you want the extra virgin or the virgin. They are both good with, virgin has a higher smoke point. It means you can cook with higher heat than the extra virgin. So here's the article I wrote about that. And you also want to make sure that they're in a dark container. You don't want your olive oil exposed to light. So you want to get it in a dark container. I know they sell it in the aluminum, but I'm not a fan of aluminum. I prefer glass. I prefer you get green glass. And here is the CBS News show. You can't download you can read the article about the show. You need to have CBS All Access, which I have now, because I'm watching the new Star Trek. But if you have CBS All Access, you can watch that 60 minutes on the mafia and how they are messing up our olive oil. So, third problematic brand that can be organic is rice. So, the problem with rice is that it has a high arsenic content. So, rice is grown in the ground, and our ground is contaminated with arsenic. Now, our soil. Now, arsenic is it's obviously a poison. It's obviously toxic to the body. So you really have to be careful when you're buying rice. Consumer Reports did a report, I want to say like 2012 or so, on the top rice. Lundberg Farms came out with the lowest arsenic in it. I know there are other brands now. I know there are places where they specifically farm rice just so that they have safe rice. So you can get low arsenic. You can even get arsenic-free rice. It's going to cost you a lot of money. But the problem with the rice is that even if you're getting organic, it doesn't matter because it's the soil that's contaminated. So my friend Karen Lee, Dr. Karen Lee, she wrote a great article. She wrote a lot about this problem. And she said that 80% of all rice in the U.S. comes from areas where inorganic arsenic, which is the unsafe kind, is an issue, like in the South. California is better than the South, but there are still arsenic in California-grown rice. She also mentioned that jasmine and basmati rice are better choices than short or long grain rice. I've also heard that white rice is better than brown rice because brown rice, it's in the husk, and they remove the husk, so you're removing some of the arsenic by removing the husk. And she has a bunch of articles linked in this article, and she has written how to properly cook rice while reducing the arsenic level. So the problem you also need to know is that your kid can have a rice sensitivity. My kid actually has a rice sensitivity. I don't do 100% no rice, but we don't eat a whole lot of it. And you also have to remember rice is in a lot of things. So people who are using sugar substitutes and are pushing out the sugars, and even the coconut sugars, they might be using brown rice syrup. There's rice cakes. There's rice in more things than you think that there are. So you have to be really careful with rice. And like I said, we don't avoid it altogether. We do sometimes still use tinkyata pasta, which is made from rice. But we're not heavy rice eaters anymore, not since this. So the next thing to know, the next loser on my list, loser number 4, is organic eggs. So the problem is that people go to the store and they think, oh, I have organic eggs, or I have free-range eggs, or caged eggs, and they're fine. Well, they're not really fine. So you have to know that the organic designation mostly regulates the feed. Free-range chickens and free-range eggs, those chickens hens can still be farmed in cramped housing. They can still be factory farmed. They may only be let outside briefly. Cage-free, for a cage-free eggs, that means the hens are raised. It only means that they're not raised in a cage, but they still can be in cramped quarters. It doesn't necessarily mean they're outside on the range. So you have to, what you ultimately want to buy are pastured eggs. So pastured eggs are actually raised on the pasture, the whole natural way. They are not caged. They are not factory farmed. They are not inside. And what you want, of course, is pastured organic eggs, because then that means that you are going, the hens are not eating GMO free feed. They're eating GMO free feed. But something you have to also keep in mind with feed is that a couple of years ago, California had a drought, and they had a drought for, I think, the better part of a year, if not a whole year. It was a serious drought. And what happened was a lot of the GMO-free feed was, it's organic. So it was affected by the drought. And they ran out of the GMO-free feed, and people were shipping feed all over the country, and they were literally running out. So they had to feed some of the chickens and some other livestock. They had to give them GMO-free feed, or else they would have starved. So you have to understand that things like that can happen. And if you really want to eat 100% GMO, it's extremely tricky when natural events and economic disasters like this happen. So again, you want pastured organic eggs, and they are probably going to cost you $5 for 12. And that's just how much they cost. That's what that's up here in PA. That's what they cost. So just so you know, unless you know how the person is raising them, and you can get a better deal than that, you might be able to get a better deal from your local farmers who you know and trust. But you definitely want them pastured. And the thing with eggs is the worry with eggs is salmonella, and the salmonella comes from the outside of the egg. And that's because often that's picked up when they're in a factory farm. And they're walking around in crap, and it's just unclean and unsanitary, and so the salmonella goes around, and the salmonella is on the outside of the egg, not the inside. So you just want to make sure that you're safe with the outside of the egg. But again, that's why you want to have it pastured, because if they're pasture raised, they kind of need to stay a lot cleaner than a factory farm can be. Okay, so the fifth loser on my organic list are legumes. And there's so many reasons I don't eat legumes very often. And so first of all, we're talking about beans and lentils and peanuts and soy. So when you talk about peanuts and soy, you're going to talk about two food items that are extremely high on the allergen list. I'm sure there are a lot of schools that ban peanut butter. We haven't gone to one yet ourselves, but it's a highly allergic. Those are two highly allergic foods. Soy, we avoid soy completely. My daughter is actually allergic to soy. It plays with her behavior. Soy is actually it's a phytoestrogen, I believe it's called. So if you're not aware exactly what your estrogen levels are, it can mess with them. And so you kind of want to avoid soy, I would say, especially if you're a woman. And then the other problem with beans and all those kind of products, they often come in cans. And BPA, BPS free cans are hard to find. So you got a lot of cans that are BPA free, but now they're using another chemical and it's even worse, right? So finding jarred, ready to eat beans is really hard. There's only a few brands that do it. So as I mentioned earlier, they also have copper toxicity. So if you have a diet, like if you're vegan or vegetarian, you have a diet very high in things like soy and other legumes, and you can suffer from copper issues with copper. You can, if your zinc is out of whack. Again, coming in the BPA cans, you don't want to eat a lot of canned food at all because of the chemicals in the can. There's very few, I think Eden Organic makes a can that's fairly safe, but most cans I wouldn't trust. And then another issue with beans actually is a lot of them are FODMAPs, FODMAPs, if you've heard of that. FODMAPs are carbs that are hard for some people to digest. So there's all that big controversy that maybe the gluten, maybe people aren't really having gluten issues, they're having FODMAPs issues. And so beans are one of them. Now, the one thing I need to tell you is that I recently read that if you have the MTHFR mutation, like my daughter does, it's recommended that they have legumes. So you always, my daughter won't touch legume, but just so you know, everything, when you're eating, so I'm giving you our suggestions of what we do. So my family doesn't really like beans. And honestly, when we first went gluten-free, we bought the Bonzo bean flour. Oh, Lord, I hated it. And then I tried making my own flour with certain kinds of beans, and that was a nightmare. And yeah, we're not big on legumes. I don't think you actually need to eat them, but if you are vegan or vegetarian, you might. So just some things to look out for. So those are my 5 losers that you either want to avoid or be extremely careful when buying. Nuts and seeds and nut and seed butter, olive oil, rice, organic eggs, stick to pastured, and legumes. So what are the winners? Well, this is what we regularly buy all the time, as much as possible. And I'll tell you why it's also been a good investment for us. So the number one thing on this list I had to put is organic coconut oil. And the reason is it is pricier, but I cook like everything in it. So you want to make sure that you've got, if you're cooking stovetop, that you've got a higher smoke point oil. I use Barlean's, I'll write it in here, Barlean's culinary coconut oil. I'm going to write that for you. Barlean's culinary. That, it tastes like nothing. You can actually eat it off your finger. It doesn't taste like anything, and it's higher smoke point, so you can cook with it. They also make a butter flavor. Now, those are both refined. I believe they are both. So refined is okay as long as the oil is expeller pressed. So when you refine organic coconut oil, you are processing it. But it's necessary if you want to cook with coconut oil and not have the taste of coconut oil. But you just have to make sure that your brand is expeller pressed. If you're expeller pressed, you're good whether you're refined or virgin. Here's a great post I found from, of course, the Coconut Mama, all about coconut oil and the different ways to buy it. We buy the Barlean's, and we also bake with the Barlean's, but we use Kirkman's from Costco, Kirkman's organic coconut oil. Huge tub is like $18. I've also bought Nutiva, the 54 ounce on Lucky Vitamin, I believe, for about $23, $25. You can find it from time to time on Lucky Vitamin or Amazon. I'm sure Thrive Market has it. So it's always a good winner for us because it's so flexible. It's just easy. You just have it in your cabinet, use it for everything, and it lasts a long time. If you buy the huge tub, it's a great bargain. Okay, so the next winner is organic frozen fruit and vegetables. Right now, obviously, if you're buying organic produce, you're going to buy what's in season because that's the best thing to do. That'll get you the best prices. Or buy at the farmer's market, and it'll get you the freshest. You know, it'll be, especially if it's local and it hasn't been shipped from far away. But sometimes we just want to eat those things all year long, right? We want our strawberries all year long. So what happens is when they're growing fruits and vegetables, the fruits and vegetables are frozen directly after picking. And as I did a lot of research for this, everywhere it said that they only lose a tiny bit of their nutritional value. So you're like, oh, frozen doesn't have as much nutrition. Well, they do. So buy frozen fruits and vegetables. Make sure they're USD organic. Flash frozen is quicker and better. And you can buy them in bulk. So I buy them in bulk either at Costco, has bags in bulk. Most of the local supermarkets have their own supermarket brand. Like Wegmans has a giant bag of Wegmans frozen strawberries, or Whole Foods. You know, they all have their own name brand, and you can find a good price if you keep going. Obviously, the bigger markets, Costco having a lot of organic items, are going to have them for an even better price. So that is my second. Those, you know, last us a reasonable amount of time. You put them in the fridge, and I stick them in my smoothies, and I always have something for lunch. If I want a smoothie bowl, I always have my frozen fruits and veggies to stick in it. Okay, winner number 3 is grass-fed beef. So if you eat meats and you eat grain-fed, I want to tell you, really stop. Don't eat that anymore. A lot of those poor, horrible farming practices, you don't want those in your beef. What you want is grass-fed beef. Now, years ago, we watched Food Inc., and I recommend watching Food Inc., even though it's kind of an oldie now. But that was where we learned what happens with cows who are grain-fed. It's totally unnatural. It's unnatural to their system. The way, you know, cows have 4-part stomachs, and they're not actually meant to, they actually didn't evolve or design, whatever you believe in. They are not meant to process grain. They are meant to process grass. So you have these cows and steer having a lot of issues when they're being fed grain that they wouldn't normally have in nature, and it leads to a lot of problems. It leads to the salmonella problem. It leads to lots of issues. But grass-fed beef, here are all the benefits. I listed for them in an article. Grass-fed beef is leaner. You get better balanced omega-3 in beef. They also contain more CLA than grain-fed beef. I wrote it down. So CLA is a fatty acid that is good for you. It's anti-carcinogenic. It's anti-inflammatory. It may lower body fat. There's a lot of, I even found on WebMD even recommended CLA and from grass-fed meat. You can actually get it in supplement form, but you're better off getting it from meat. It's a natural cruelty-free to raise the cattle. There are more nutrients and antioxidants besides the CLA and the good omegas, including vitamin E and beta-carotene. They have less exposure to pesticides, no carcinogens, GMOs, hormones, or antibiotics. As I said, less risk of salmonella, as well as other bacteria and other contaminants. So, yeah, grass-fed's a lot more money, but if you can find that certified grass-fed label, go for it. Some of the supermarkets, I know we buy at Costco, we buy at Wegmans a lot. They work with the local farmers, Wegmans, and you know, it can get really pricey. A lot of the online places are super pricey. We try to just stick to beef and only buy steaks on rare occasions. You can also find a grass-fed butcher and get, you know, a side of beef, a quarter of the beef, a share, or a large order. So I would definitely recommend that. Look for where they sell grass-fed beef around you. And you want to probably have less meat, more vegetables. So it's a little pricey, but it's worth the price because you're definitely getting healthier, safer beef. Okay. Organic winner number 4 is organic fermented foods. Now, fermented foods just have so many benefits, and put this article and share it for you here. So fermented foods themselves are probiotic, and Sorry about that. They, if you get them organic, obviously a lot of things that are in fermented foods are healthy. So fermented foods, they they've actually been, you take your vegetable, like if you were going to make pickles or you were going to make sauerkraut, you would take your vegetable, your cabbage or your cucumber, and you put them in, you can put them in with water and salt or water and vinegar. There's different ways. There's tons of books on how to ferment. I haven't done it yet, but it's supposed to be so easy. And you let it sit for a couple of days. It preserves the food. It creates beneficial enzymes, vitamins, fatty acids. It's all really good stuff for you. So if you like pickles or you like Bubby's pickles are my favorite. Sauerkraut. Bubby's is also coming to my stores with sauerkraut. Those are fermented foods. So and kimchi is also, those are probably the three most famous fermented foods that you hear of. They're all really good and delicious, but you can ferment anything. We go to a local Mexican restaurant, and one of the things I like about them is on your table as an appetizer, free of charge to some places put out popcorn. They put out a plate of fermented vegetables, and it's like carrots and cauliflower and broccoli and peppers and onions. It's like delicious. So fermented foods are really good for you. You should go for organic. We also love fermented jalapenos. We love to use those. So, it's a great, if you can take the acidity, so they are high in acid, so you have to be careful with that. But they are really great for you. They have like probiotic faculties in them as well. So they're a great thing to add to your diet. If you're on a particular diet that incorporates probiotics, such as a GAPS diet, you're going to see fermented foods on those meal plans as well. Okay, and the last one, organic winner number 5 is the apple cider vinegar. I love apple cider vinegar because it has a lot of health benefits. So it can kill many types of bacteria. So what's great about apple cider vinegar is you get this big, I buy the Bragg organic. You buy this big container of it, and it lasts you a long time, and you can use it. You can make coleslaw. You can use it on, you might be a little weird in salad. Some people take it straight up because it helps fight blood sugar levels. It helps fight diabetes. It can help you lose weight. Some people say it lowers cholesterol and reduces risk of heart disease, and it may have benefits against cancer. But then if you've got it, you can turn around and use it to clean. How awesome is that? So it's a great all-purpose product to have around the house for health, for cooking, and for cleaning. Now, I said I like apple cider vinegar. There is a steakhouse, I think it's Prime, and they make this amazing coleslaw. I love coleslaw. I'm one of those crazy people who loves coleslaw, but not the crappy kind you get in the diner. They make it with ACV, and the first time I ate it, I looked at Chris, and Chris is like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "There's ACV, and this is the best coleslaw I've ever eaten in my life." And so I've been on a mission to find a good coleslaw recipe and make it myself, but I'm not much of a cook. But I definitely recommend organic apple cider. Again, like I say, I use Bragg's. They're great because they come in a nice big bottle, and it lasts a long time as well. So these are my 5 that I recommend you buy. Organic coconut oil, buy that one in bulk. Organic frozen fruit and vegetables, especially if they are flash frozen, buy your supermarket brand. Grass-fed beef, again, look at your supermarket brands if you have them, Costco's brands, or go find a butcher who specializes in bulk deliveries. Organic fermented foods, one of my favorite brands is Bubby's. They make pickles and sauerkraut and jalapeno pickles. Oh, and Wild's Brine. Wild's Brine makes a lot of varieties of sauerkraut and kimchi as well. So they're another brand I love. And organic apple cider vinegar for cooking, health, and cleaning. Again, Bragg is the brand that I use for that. So that's all my winners and losers. I hope you had, I hope this was interesting and informative for you. And I picked these out, again, like I said, over what we use. Everything I've quoted to you here, we are either is in our refrigerator or we're going to go out and get it soon. We're kind of on the low of groceries this week. But this is the stuff we use and buy all the time. And the losers are the things that I have bought and I have purchased, and I just don't use as much anymore because it's too difficult to fit them in my budget, to find the right type, to make sure that they're clean enough and that my kids are not reacting to them in some way. So I hope that was great information for you. And I'm going to leave a bunch of links in here. I've listed a few, some of my favorite websites and places where you can get information like how to reduce arsenic when you are cooking rice, proper way to do that, and about the agro mafia and how they are affecting olive oil imports in this country, as well as wine and cheese. And that's it. So share with me, let me know what organic products you have questions or problems or difficulties with finding in a way that you can fit in your life and budget, and which products you love and you couldn't live without, that you are so glad you became GMO free. And that's it for today. And thank you for joining me, and hope you have a great and wonderful Thursday. And I will see you next week. Bye.